I've got JoDee Curtis here. She's the founder of Purple Ink and the Ink Pad. Yeah. She's the author of Joy-Powered, Intentionally Creating an Inspired Workspace. Literally, you are the perfect person to have on right now, JoDee. Thank you for coming. This is exactly what we need to be talking about. Thank you for showing up and spending time with us today on the porch.
Hey, I'm here. I'm joy-powered and toasty-mosty today. All at the same time. So
tell me, JoDee, what made you've had a couple cool career changes.
Yeah.
What do you think has, like, as you've gone along, I have a suspicion of what has guided your steps, but I want to hear it from you. From some of us who are trying to navigate our career, what do you think has guided your different steps throughout your career?
Yeah. It's interesting. I can still remember when I was in high school and I told my mom I was going to be an accounting major in college. And she said, "What? Like, you're going to be an accounting major?" And then it's funny, I haven't been an accountant for 30 years now. And so for so many people that know me now, when they find out I was an accountant, they're like, "What?" I'm like, that's exactly what my mom said 30 years ago. So, okay, maybe a little more than 30 years ago. But, I always say in those I was an auditor in public accounting for 9 years, and I loved everything about my job. I loved my clients. I loved the team building. I loved the training. I loved everything but accounting.
My main responsibility was not my jam.
Yeah. Yeah. If I just didn't have those numbers to add up, I was really joy-powered back then.
I love it. So at some point, what was the tipping point? Do you remember the moment when you said, "I've got to be done. I need to move it and move on"?
Yeah. So interestingly, actually, I haven't told this story to very many people. I was actually 9 months pregnant, and one of our clients asked me to come to work for them as a CFO. And my husband said, don't leave. You're hormonal. It's your hormones. Don't make any decisions when you're 9 months pregnant." And I was like, "I got this. I'm going to work for my client." And it was just all coincidence, but I did know mentally I was ready for something new. And although I still went as the CFO, I also have responsibility for HR. So it was really the first official time in my career, although I had been recruiting and training and all that, even as an auditor, where I had responsibility for HR, and I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a real lesson in there that, it doesn't matter how pregnant you are or not pregnant you are, but really you followed, we all start somewhere and then we wiggle towards what we're really made for. And I think it's so important to hear from you because most of us don't nail it out the gate. And there's this pressure to graduate college, right? And I'm going to be a CPA. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Right. And I've got a ton of clients in their 20s, 30s, early 40s who are saying, "Wait, I went to school for this. I'm actually not really interested in that. I feel obligation to keep doing it." And you found a way to pivot. And HR is very hard to get into. It's not a field. It's not as easy as some other fields. You need your certifications. You're caring for people, and then you've got policies. There's a lot of layers there that make it complicated, and you found your way in. You made it happen.
And even though it seems like such a drastic shift from being an accountant to an HR role, I wouldn't trade my accounting background and my accounting experience for everything, because I think it gave me the confidence maybe 25 years later to start my own business, because I'd had that experience with businesses early on. Mm-hmm. Certainly not that, everybody has to be an accounting major, but it worked for me. And in the long term, it all made sense. It just maybe didn't make sense at all the stops and pivots along the way. So.
Yeah, well, and that's when I think about your career, that's your unique crosshair, is you have this financial background and then you have this deep love for people.
Right.
And that's that crosshair makes you really valuable inside of organizations who have to make decisions for people and regarding resources. That's huge.
Right. Yeah, it's worked. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I think about Purple Ink a lot because we get to do partnerships, we get to do cool work together, and the last couple 6 months have been interesting. And I'm curious from an HR perspective, when you look at the last 6 months, when you talk to HR leaders, are they like, I think I want to be an auditor now. I think I want to do something else. Or what is your sense of our HR community? We've got a lot of people in HR on live with us on the show. What's your sense? Where would you say people are at after this kind of roller coaster?
Yeah, well, I can 100% say that no one has told me they wanted to be an auditor. So that is for sure.
Okay, they haven't gone that far. Okay, yeah.
Right. I also, by the way, since you use the term roller coaster, I keep telling people, and I didn't make this up, I saw it on Facebook, that I've been on the Corona coaster.
Yeah.
Some days are up and some days are down, but I am definitely on the coaster. So
Yes. Isn't it just true? It's so good to hear you say that.
Yeah. I think most of us have gone through it at some point, whether we're too busy or not busy enough or excited or hopeful, and then go backwards on our phased openings. And it's definitely been difficult. It's been difficult for me personally. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
but I think for most HR people, it has just been an unbelievably crazy time. And I was on a call this morning with several HR leaders, and I asked them this question because I said, I have my own perspective, but I want to hear yours about how has this been for you. And of course, it's starting to flatten out a bit. At first, there was, all this craziness about getting people to work from home and to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to do things differently and work from home agreements and maybe even continue hiring people, but also maybe furloughing or letting
Yep.
people go. So either way, it was a crazy busy time. But also what I saw from a lot of HR leaders is, and I've been debating for 3 days about whether to use this term because it's a term that I don't like, and I'm still going to say it. HR leaders, so many HR leaders for so long have said they want to be at the table. Well, you know what? I think they're all at the table right
I think
now.
they're sitting on the table right now.
I think they're standing on the table, yes, or crawling under the table. But
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
maybe they were standing, now they're crawling underneath it. But because they have been a key player in all this,
That's right.
every single thing around between the loans and the CARES Act, and it has been a huge focus on people and our employees and how we can figure this out for them. So I think it's given a lot of HR people who maybe didn't have that focus at the senior level an opportunity to really shine and to grow and to be viewed as a leader in a different way, because the organizations have needed them so much. So although it's been tough, and I know there's probably some people listening that might be groaning a bit at that.
Somebody's, yeah. This is not what I meant by getting a seat at the table.
Exactly. But it's just been a whole new spotlight on HR.
Yes. This will define HR leaders. You can see that moving forward. When I talk to younger generations about where they want to go next in their career or how they look at companies, they're really looking at the way that people are treated.
Yeah.
It's not just HR's job,
Right.
That's definitely, HR, we're putting policies in place. We are creating systems and tools for everybody. But at the same time, we really do in the HR world, we set the tone and we set the expectation of how people are treated. And we set the perspective too. And that perspective is also shifting, what our employees want from us, what they expect from us, what they need from us, especially like you said, if they're working from home.
Right.
So that's interesting. It's almost, I don't know if you're definitely saying this, but it's almost like, hey, this is your chance to be heard.
Right.
So start talking. Don't be afraid.
Right, right, right. Be
Right.
innovative, be creative,
Mm-hmm.
learning, take this opportunity. I know, and that's a difficult balance because a lot of HR leaders have been so busy, but there's also so much information out there too as things have gone virtual, and so many webinars and
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to learn and grow in different ways. So
Yeah. How else do you think COVID has actually helped HR leaders? How else do you think it sounds? I mean, they get a lot of opportunity for education for sure.
right, right, right. Some of it, maybe on things they never thought they they wanted to learn about or know
Yeah.
about, like, a lot of legal compliance and face mask laws and who can do what and how much hand sanitizer do we need and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for me personally, I have really taken an opportunity to learn and grow and develop myself because I've actually had more time. And so for some of those HR
Yeah.
leaders who maybe their business has slowed, it has been an opportunity to seek out new information or even join different groups or listen to On the Porch or the Joy Powered Web podcast,
Which
right?
is awesome. Yes. Check it out.
Especially the episode with Lindsay Picardo.
We'll just keep cross-referencing ourselves during this. I love it. But
Yeah,
yeah, take in information. And
yeah.
even, what I love about your podcast is people feel like they're not alone when they listen to it.
Oh,
And,
nice.
when you're in HR, you're trying to care for people. Your bucket, your cup is poured out every day. You're empty at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And we need people on our team that can say, get up, it's going to be okay.
Right,
This has happened before. We're going to
right,
get through it. Here are
right.
some little hints or some clues at what to do next.
Yeah, yeah. HR, I think, is a very sharing community.
Yes, I've seen
People
that.
people like to find out what other people doing or using the resources, even if it's within industry associations or SHRM or Indie SHRM or whatever that might look like in your community. But I also think I've been fascinated, not only in the HR world, just in the world in general, with the creativity that people have used and figuring out how to make it work for people at home and teach their kids at the
Mhm.
same time and also post hilarious things on Facebook. So I'm a big fan of the concept of creativity. And I read once Dr. Ambassador said that most adults use less than 10% of their creativity on a given day. And I think, if we have to look for a bright side in all this, I think we've all learned some new ways to be creative as,
Isn't
as
that
HR
true?
professionals and as people. So,
That's so true.
yeah,
Well, and I think when we get older too, we get kind of comfy with our routine.
yeah, yeah,
And all of a sudden we have to do it differently, and we realize, well, maybe I am more flexible than I thought. I
yeah,
am more able to adapt. Humans are such adaptable creatures,
right.
and we can forget. It goes back to that idea, whatever you believe about yourself becomes the truth. So if I believe like, oh, everything's going down and I'm in trouble, that's all I find.
Right, right.
Is there any mantra that you have been like reminding yourself of or putting in front of yourself on those? Because we mentioned the roller coaster. Some days are great, some days are low. What do
Yeah.
you do to kind of reset on a day where that roller coaster is going downhill?
Yeah, well, having been the author of 3 books called Joy Powered and having a podcast called Joy Powered,
Ugh.
been it's been hard for me that I feel like I'm supposed to be this joy powered. Like I almost have this pressure on myself to be joy powered all the time, and I wasn't, and especially in the month of April. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't for a while, and that believe me, my team and my family will tell you I'm not joy powered every day, all day long. But, I've got a pretty good gig going. And it was the first time in a long time where I felt that pain and pressure and some
Yeah.
fever. We had our 10-year anniversary. We're celebrating all year long, but technically it was on June 3rd. And I was beginning to wonder if we were going to make it to June 3rd. So
It's scary.
yeah. So,
And I think, how do you, when you know, let me ask it this way. When have you been in a situation like this before? Because you have been in scenarios like this where we don't know the outcome
yeah.
and we're kind of holding out with our little fingertips.
Yeah.
Have you been in a situation like that before?
Definitely not to this degree or this
Mhm.
extreme. I'll have to
Mhm.
think of an example of that. I will, I'm a big fan of Clifton Strengths Finders, and one
Yes.
of my top 5 strengths is futuristic, and one is positivity. And I felt like it was the first time in as long as I could think of where I wasn't able to use those 2 strengths. Like I didn't know
Yes.
what the future was going to hold, and
Yes.
really hard to be positive. And
Yes.
that was kind of a double whammy for me working through that. So
I can see that. And that pressure too, when I think of you, you've done such a good job with branding. When I think of you, it's joy powered, joy powered, joy powered, JoDee joy powered. And I can imagine you're having these moments of, I don't have a lot left in my well to draw from right now. And the mechanisms that you use looking into the future, being optimistic.
yeah,
I can totally see how there'd be moments where you're like, oh, okay, we're just gonna be present for the moment
right,
and hope
right,
that things continue to progress. Yeah.
right.
And
And I'm
go
so
ahead.
grateful, really, because that lasted about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Many businesses are struggling way more than we are, and we're coming through it on the other end.
Yes.
And some businesses, it's getting harder and harder, or they've closed shop.
Mhm.
So I don't say that as a way to, oh, woe is me, right?
Oh,
Plenty of people
totally. Yeah.
struggling more than me. It's been the first time, and I can't even think of a moment to compare it to for me.
Yeah. I think it's just important. I love to ask people that question, when have you been here before? Because there's comfort in even you telling me, as a young trainer and speaker, when you say like, we've never been here, I'm like, oh, okay, it's not just me. We're not
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
this is like this. It's very real, and there's so much health in being able to say, this is hard. We're
right,
not silver lining everything. This is
right,
tough.
right.
I asked oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I think I thought of my example
Yeah.
of when it was that tough, which is probably, so I graduated from the University of Evansville, and we were on the quarter system. So I graduated on a Friday. I mean, not the ceremony, but I had my last day of class on a Friday, and I started work on Monday morning. I was so excited, beginning my career, had on my brand new suit and my pantyhose, went into work. Pretty much I added numbers on the calculator all day long, and I was super slow at that. And at the end of the day, it was all I could do to get in my car, and I cried for like 3 hours because I said, this is what I thought I wanted all through college, and I hate it.
Yes. Yes.
Now, in hindsight, I did work there for 15 years, so I got over it,
You
right?
worked through it.
But it was a tough first week for me, let me tell you.
Yeah, it could be. It's really, there are these moments where our expectations do not meet reality.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. That's how it was that day, and that's how it's been for the past 5 months, right?
I am with you in that. Yeah. And that's hard to wrestle with. That takes time to work through for sure. And when I think about, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's grief model, I've been
Yeah,
using that with organizations that I work with, and just talking about, it's going to be normal that you have a morale dip. That is
right,
human.
right,
Nobody's just going to keep going, well, here we go again. Nothing.
right,
My expectations are completely not, matching reality, but I'm
right,
okay.
right,
So I
right.
love that you share that. I know that brings a lot of comfort to me and, all of us HR leaders on this call. I've got a couple like very specific HR questions I really want to hear your perspective on.
Okay.
I've been researching remote work for a while because half of millennials already work remote. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, COVID kind of, ignited the need to do that. Do you think remote work is here to stay? What do you think is going to happen?
I will say early on, I thought, oh my God, because I've been working remote for a long time, or at least partially remote. And I thought 100% yes. It's here to stay. People have finally figured out that this is the way life should be. But, and I've been asking this question of other people for the last month or so too, about what they think. And it's been an interesting response. I mean, some companies say, yes, we think some people will. Some jobs can do it, but we're really looking forward to having everyone back in the office. And I'm surprised by that, I guess, because I see it on the individual side that some of us, including myself, like I have a need to be around people. I want that. I don't want to work from home by myself every day. So I want to be around people. But I am not getting as a resounding strong yes as I thought I was from companies
Isn't that interesting?
organizations that has really surprised me. So I still want to say yes, and I certainly think we're going to have a lot more opportunities than we ever did before.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a CFO candidate just yesterday who his company got bought out and he's looking for a new role, and he has been really able to expand his search a lot farther to places that he doesn't want to move to.
Yep.
And he doesn't want to drive to every day, but they've already told him, you could come to the office 3 days and work from home too. And I think about what an opportunity that is both for individuals and for organizations who maybe
That's right.
struggle to find talent.
That's right.
And people who maybe struggle to find the right fit, that even doing some sort of partial combination hybrid model can just explode the whole talent process on both sides for people and companies.
I definitely see that happening in the recruiting process, where if you want the top talent, there's got to be flexibility in work location.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Fascinating. So there, it sounds like underneath it, you are picking up on that human need to actually be in the same spot.
Yeah, at least some of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need that. But not everyone, but yeah, I think a lot of people do.
Well, I imagine too, in your training studio, I've by mistake walked in on some of your trainings, because I'm like using your side office, but I can see, there's so many other elements when people come to Purple Ink. You've got the little tables where they're kind of broken into groups of 4 or 6. Then you've got these tactile things for people to squeeze and play with, and then, notes for people to write. And I would say it's very 4-dimensional experience, right? Yeah. You've got those mints, those melt in your mouth mints. Everybody stop by Purple Ink. You miss those. Those are delicious. I eat way too many whenever I'm there. But you've got all these different tactile experiences in 4 dimensions. And now even when we're doing training, it's a very different experience to just be right 2-dimensional on the screen.
Hello, listeners.
Yeah, this is what we've got. So here we go. Get your own squishy ball and your own mints, okay, people? We're getting started. But it really is a different experience. So I can see what you're saying, that there is a blend in the future where we know it's almost like when you stretch a rubber band, this can stretch farther than I thought. It's not going to go all the way back. Right. Somewhere in the middle.
Right. Which I think is good. Good. And boy, if I had to tell you, I love our office. If I had to list 10 cool things about our office, I would not have come up with the mints. So that's so funny that was one of your favorites.
Keep those. That's my feedback. The bright walls are great too, but I'm going to go with the food because I'm Italian. Yes.
Love it.
So what else? Is there anything else that when you look into the future, being a futurist, let's pick your brain a little bit. Think about, go a year out, because like 3 months out, I don't know, JoDee. I don't know what's going to happen, but a year out, summer 2021.
Yeah.
With your futurist positivity, bring those 2 strengths in. What could you see happening a year from now?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think the world of work is going to look different, right?
Yes.
Even if we don't all work remotely or we don't have the opportunities, because a lot of organizations don't, hospitals and banks, credit unions. I mean, they need some people on the front lines, right? They need lots of people on the front lines. So remote work is not going to work for everyone. But I definitely think that organizations have given people so much more grace in the workspace, and having kids and dogs and cats and climbing across their screen, and getting to know people in their own space, right? And
Yes.
so I feel even more human awareness for organizations to deal with that. And then the ability, again, even if they're not working remotely, to be able to work more flexible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I think that's all the good news. Unfortunately, I do think that recessions are always a good time, right? As we lived through 2008, 9, 10, you
Mhm.
probably didn't live through it that much. You're so young, but
I think I was traveling around as a drummer, so I didn't give a crap about the economy. Now I do.
But it gave, good or bad, it gave organizations an opportunity to restructure, to
That's
rethink
right.
their processes. Do they need as many people? Do they need as many people in this department as that department? So I, doesn't sound very joy powered, but I don't think furloughs are over. I don't think downsizing is going to be over for a while, and that's going to take some time to work through that, which might be a year still before we get to that point.
Yeah. I wish it wasn't. I wish that weren't the case. What were you going to say?
Well, I think, because I love to talk about creativity, I think that's where people have to think creatively. They have to think creatively about their work, about opportunities, about different types of organizations that are coming through stronger than ever through this. And it's not going to be a dead and dismal in a year. It's just going to look different than it does right now. We've all learned to work differently, to train differently, to speak differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going away.
What would you say? I'm going to put you on the spot, but I know
Yeah.
you'll have a good answer. What would you say if somebody, is worried that they're not going to have their job in a year, and they're hearing you say get creative, and they're like, I don't even know what you actually mean by that. What are a couple very practical things that somebody could do to help prepare themselves?
Yeah, well, number one that we talked about a little bit already is learning and growing, right?
Yes.
Even listening to podcasts, right? It doesn't have to be something you spend money on, or maybe your company's training budget has been cut. Unfortunately, sometimes that's one of the first to get cut. So
That's right.
I don't encourage that one, but I think it happens. So don't sit around and wait on someone else, wait on your boss, wait on your department, wait on your company to make things different for you. You've got to take control. You've got to be the leader. How can you learn? How can you grow? How can you share? How can you think differently about your work every day? And how can you be more efficient? Or what are you doing that doesn't need to be done? Or how can you add more value? Or how can you be viewed as a stronger leader, not just live as a stronger leader, but be seen as a stronger leader? As you said earlier, the spotlight is on, and take the
Yep.
opportunity and speak up about it, right? What do you
Mhm.
got to give? What do you got to give?
I love that. And that's a piece too. Have you heard of this role called a chief heart officer? Have you heard of this concept?
I have, yes,
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 this idea of, we're reaching a new level in HR where it's not just like what's your health insurance. It's not
right,
just your physical body, but your mental and emotional
right,
well-being. And I do wonder in the HR world if some of us are saying, "Man, I really want to be somebody that takes care of people." And I get the desire to want to take care of people, but we've got to add we've got to add tools to our tool belt. If
right.
you want to be that type of person in the future, if you want to be the type of HR leader that people want to hear from, where are reshaping your future culture,
Yeah,
there's some real skills that you can build in. I've been encouraging people to look at even taking psychology classes online. There's tons of different models that you can look into and learn a lot about right now,
Right.
and then, how do you want to make a difference in your office? If you can be really clear, how do you want to make a difference on your team? Then you can train yourself towards those skills.
Mhm.
But this is like what you said in the beginning. You're sitting at the table. What do you want to bring that's not there already?
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that title too, Chief Heart Officer, so much more than, and I'm cringing because there's probably some people listening who have this title. But I've never liked the title Chief People Officer because, as you said it earlier, that we're all responsible for people, right?
Yeah.
And when
Mhm.
somebody has that in their title, to me, I think it gives other people the excuse to say, well, I'm not in charge of people. I'm in charge of operations. I'm in
That's
charge
right.
of planning. That person's
That's
in charge
right.
of people. So all people problems got to go to them. No,
That's
right?
right.
We all are people leaders.
That's right.
And so I like the new title, not Chief People Officer.
That's right. We all are. Culture changes on the fringes first. It's usually not the CEO saying, we are now this type of culture. It's the
Exactly.
conversations that are happening on the edges that move all the way in that make a difference. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
How do you think, what's a miss? And I'm totally asking this out of curiosity, so you can pass if you're like, Lindsay, we did not plan that question. But what do you
I don't think we planned any so far. So
I have gone through your 3 questions in the first 6 minutes. Now it's my turn, JoDee. What great, now I forgot my question. You got me laughing. When you think of people that are in HR, maybe that have been there a decade, and they're getting a little cozy. You started to get cozy in a role. I got cozy as a speaker, and I've been doing it for less than a decade.
yeah.
What's something that you would encourage them to look at, to learn about? What are some trends that when you see in the future, like, hey, you're probably going to want to look at organizational psychology? Or what would
Yeah.
you say? What would be
Yeah.
some of those things?
It's so funny you're talking, you've mentioned psychology a couple times. That was your major, right?
Yeah, this is all
But,
about me.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, because an HR leader I was talking to this morning said, I think I need to go back and major or take some classes in psychology. So it's so funny that you're saying that too. But there's so much to learn out there, right?
Yeah.
So many opportunities to think differently. I'm not sure I answered fully your question earlier about what are 1 or 2 things you can do to think about being more creative is, I think about what you're doing, the decisions you're making from a different perspective, right? It's easy, for example, for an HR leader to think like, oh, I'd love to do this, but oh my gosh, it's going to be a nightmare for me. So I don't want to offer that, right? Or,
Mhm.
oh, I'd love to do this, but it's going to take way too much time and I don't have enough people or enough time. But think about it from someone else's perspective. Think about it from the new person who just joined your organization. Think about it from the recruit who's going to your website, who's having their first interview. Think about it from the CEO, from the operations director. Like, what did they need from you? What did they need from HR? Or what that they haven't even thought about needing you for before, right? Then
Yes.
that's coaching or support or leadership or creativity in the moment of how can this job be done from home? How can we make this work from people? So I think so many times as we get cozy back in our chair, we have these blinders on of how we see things and not think about how are our client, internal or external, how are they looking at it, and how can we take our hat off for a minute and put their hat on to view it.
Mhm.
So,
So perspective taking.
yeah, thank you.
I
That was
love
a
that.
long way for me to say perspective.
No, I love it. I think that's so important though, because you're right. Especially right now when we're all working from home,
Yeah,
I've really tried to get focused when I'm doing a training and asking how many people are parenting and working full time.
yeah,
putting myself in their shoes and understanding that they're being asked to do an impossible thing month after month, week after week, day after day, going into the fall, not knowing what's actually going to happen with schools and stuff like that. But it also builds that well of compassion. And then we take different actions ultimately as leaders when we say, you know, this, I can imagine those of us in HR, you're like, hey, we're going to have to come up with a different plan for the fall. We can't burn our parents out again. We can't do that. We got to have rotating work hours, or but you would only know that if we did what you just said, take perspective of somebody else's life.
Right. You know, it's interesting although I haven't asked that specific question, and now I'm going to steal that about asking people to raise their hand if they're parenting. But I also think too, I have asked, or I have thought a lot about parents. A lot of people on my team have kids in school. And so that's been, you know, right in front of me. But I was just thinking this morning in a conversation about, it's also the people who maybe are single and they've been alone, right? Or
for
even
months.
Yes. Or even people who maybe they're used to their husbands traveling or their wives traveling all the time, like I used to do, that now are spending more time together, which can be awesome, but it can also be like, hey, you're screwing up my routine here, right? And or the families where their adult children move back in and they've got 4 and 5 people working from home every day. So
that's right.
It's affected everybody in so many different ways. So
that's right. I had somebody tell me the other day, you know, I don't have any money to come to your training because I had to outfit my house with a new office.
Oh.
So you're like, because I don't think companies are thinking, you know, if I had to, CEO, if I had to work from home, I would need a table. I would need, you know, I can't just be on my little laptop all day. I need a separate, you know, keyboard. I'm going to need a budget to do that. And even those pieces, like you're talking about, given your different circumstances, how do we make this so that people can do it long term?
Right. You know, as I said earlier, I personally have worked from home at least part of the time for well over 10 years now. And I personally just created a home office. I bought a stand-up desk. I got a new lamp. I put some new artwork up. You know, I was working from my recliner. Now I'm like, oh, maybe I need to get a better view.
And even having like a little space that I do, I'm in a spare bedroom right now. All I do in this spare bedroom is emails, shoot videos. That's it. And there's a dog bed in here. Obviously, there's a dog bed in every room of my house.
Of course, me too.
But having that space, I can imagine, you know, when we were talking to before we all jumped on, you know, we're going to be in this probably longer. Well, we have been in it longer than we want to be. So at some point we just have to say, how am I going to make myself comfortable now? Because I can't keep wishing and hoping. Maybe September, maybe October, probably not through the winter. So how do we make ourselves comfortable, and our team too?
Right.
We've got a couple people asking questions. Can I shoot your way and see?
Yeah. I'm there for you, right? Not me.
What's that? Oh no, they're definitely all for you. Lots of advice. We need your help, JoDee. Save us all from ourselves. And if you do have a question, this is a great time. Throw it in the chat, throw it in the Q&A. We'll find it. Erica asked this. Do you have any advice for somebody trying to get into HR? We've talked about it's tough to get into HR. And if they're a little bit later in the game, 35 years old, graduated in 2018, what advice would you give somebody who wants to do that type of work?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I just had a conversation with someone last week about this, and I'm not necessarily proud of the HR profession for this, but I think like myself and many of my team members, we got into HR because we had like combination roles, right? Or for some reason, a lot of HR people report to accounting people, right? So, or it's an operations person who wears the HR hat too. So sometimes if you can combine your skills or have one job title, but start to say, hey, I'd love to interview more. I'd love to recruit more. I'd love to do training. even if, you know, when I started training, I was training on accounting things, believe it or not. And no, I don't do that anymore. That would be awful for me and my class. But think about how might you start doing some of those things where you are and gaining some of that experience, because lots of organizations have a wide range of people involved in the recruiting process or hiring or training from different skill sets. So pick up some of those skills along the way.
That makes a lot of sense to start to wiggle into it.
Yeah.
Find opportunities.
Yeah.
That's great. Erica said that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Who else has got a question? Sam, I don't know if I missed any. I've obviously got a boatload of questions that I want to ask, but I want to see, does anybody else have questions?
Looks like we've covered all the ones in the chat so far, and none in the Q&A at the moment.
Okay, great. All right, JoDee, you're back on the hot seat. It's my turn again.
I'm ready.
I love it.
I'm ready.
No, this is so good. I usually see you like once every 6 weeks, once every 2 months. So it's just, has anybody else had this feeling when you see an old friend and you're like, JoDee, you're buddies. This has been such a strange time to not have our normal cadence. And I know that's hard for all of us, but
right. And then when we're wearing masks, it's almost like, is that Lindsay behind those polka dot masks?
Yes. I don't have a polka dot mask. So if it was that, it's not me. But yeah.
I do.
Okay, JoDee, everybody look. I bet it's purple and green polka dots.
You know, I have an orange polka dot. I do have several purple masks. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
We had another question coming that's really important. We've got to cover it. You can plead the fifth on this one. Peggy's asking, who's your favorite Purple Ink employee?
Well, since I think Peggy might be the only Purple Inkster on the call, I think it's Peggy Hogan.
Peggy, nailing it.
Yeah.
I love this. Erica's got another question. She's hilarious. She's like, well, if nobody else is going to ask any, I'm going to ask more. Everybody's holding back. If I were to spend time on certifications, which ones are the most versatile?
Yeah. Well, speaking from HR, I'm assuming 100% it's the SHRM CP or the SHRM SCP.
Isn't it like 80% or 90% of companies require that for you to be?
You know, I have to admit, I haven't heard that number be that high, but I think it's coming. I think that's certification that's becoming much more popular. So,
were any SHRM, are those the beginning SHRM certs that you're talking about? Are those like the first level?
The SHRM CP is more beginner level, and then the SCP is the senior professional. So highly recommend either one of those. So, yeah.
Great.
You know, having Peggy ask the question reminds me of a question I've been getting a lot, if you don't mind if I share that.
Yeah.
Because even I mentioned about, I think, furloughs and downsizing is going to continue, Peggy leads our career coaching and career consulting practice. And it's been very interesting to us, even though good news, bad news, that practice is growing through the roof, which is good for us, but bad for our clients because they're letting people go. People are finding jobs. There are skilled jobs out there. I have to admit, we don't do a lot of work around blue collar, but white collar jobs, and not just top of the food chain white collar jobs, but managers, and we're talking in marketing and accounting and HR and technology. And there are lots of opportunities still out there because many companies they're killing it through this, and
that's
they're growing and expanding. And so don't think like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to find a new job, because they're out there. They're out there.
That's a good word. And I think to the degree that we believe that, we'll find it, right?
Right.
We know we're in the indie job market. I know that there are jobs open every day. Yeah. Somebody's asking, when they do, what's a tip you have for standing out in the hiring process?
Yeah, well, we always say, your resume is a way for you to find us as recruiters or us as hiring managers, but it's your LinkedIn is where we
Mhm.
find you. So, you gotta make your LinkedIn profile stand
Yep,
strong, right? Be
that's
active,
right.
add some videos, put all your information out there, whether you're volunteering or use pictures. People are much more likely to look at your profile if you have your picture. I mean, as simple as that, right? Just
Yes.
put your picture on there. So, but LinkedIn, and of course, though the number one thing you can do is network.
That's right.
Seems 1,000 times harder right now because we're not having networking events, but I can tell you I've met a whole crop of new people in the
Yep.
past few months from being on ND Sherm calls or ATD calls or networking calls and HR group leader calls, and there's still a lot of opportunities to network. It just looks different.
I think that's so important to remind us all that just because we're socially distancing, it doesn't mean that you can't meet new people.
Right.
And I've been able to meet people that I really admire and taken some risks and asked, to interview people I really look up to. And they've said yes because of this time. If it was normal life, they might not have said that. But
Right.
right now, if you're
Right.
say you're trying to get somebody's attention, say you want to work for, I'll use Lessonly as an example because they're like a millennial magnet.
Right.
Everyone wants to work at Lessonly. If you want
Right.
to work at Lessonly, go comment on a couple leaders at Lessonly, comment for the next week on things that they post. They will notice you. And
Absolutely.
then as you start to build that relationship, show them your interest in Lessonly, help them understand who you are. That's how we get in. It's actually pretty natural. It's give attention to the organizations that you want to be a part of.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get the ask just right in the message, but just start pinging the companies that you really appreciate and they're posting things that matter to you.
Right.
Show them that it matters to you. And LinkedIn is a gold mine right now in this season where we have all different social medias. I think I would definitely say recommend spend the majority of your time on LinkedIn. That's where you will get the biggest return on your time. We only have, we've been hanging out for 15 minutes, JoDee. I can't believe it. And now everybody's got questions. So I got a couple more for you. What are your recommendations for mentorship during this time? How can we make mentorship opportunities more meaningful while we're socially distanced? Do you have some thoughts about that?
I love it. And I can remember, I don't know, 10 years or so ago, somebody called me up and who I barely knew and said, I'm looking for an HR mentor. And I was so flattered and thrilled by that. And I think now, of course, maybe everyone listening will call me to be their mentor. But
JoDee Curtis, 317. No.
Oh, I'm thinking Lindsay Picard.
No. I love it. No, you can call. I'll put my number up.
It was such a flattering moment for me. And I did meet with this person several times and we talked on the phone. And I think don't be afraid to do that, right? Don't be afraid to ask someone to be your mentor. And maybe that's someone in your own organization. Maybe that's someone you meet at the HR Indiana conference on August 24th through the 26th. Or
which everybody should go to, yes.
Yeah. Where Lindsay Picardos, one of our keynote speakers. But don't be afraid to reach out and ask, like, what's the worst that can happen, right? They're going to be flattered and honored. And if they don't have time, maybe they'll connect you with someone else who's even better. So,
that's right. And even asking, it says a lot when people ask me to mentor them. And if they tell me what they want mentorship on too. And I've had a lot of people come and say, I really want to be a speaker. And I'm like, ooh, this is the juice, man. Like, tell me what you want to learn.
Yeah.
I will probably talk your ear off. And so we've been letting people know what is it that you want to learn from your mentor.
Right.
Let them know. What do you want?
That's an interesting question because people think I want to mentor, and then you say, what do you want to be mentored on? I don't know. Well, think kind of specifically. Is it networking? Is it speaking? Is it benefits? Is it leadership? What is it?
Yeah. And then they might even direct you. Somebody asked me to mentor them with marketing. I was like, I'm not your gal. Here's 3 people that you probably could have a great conversation with. So it even helps somebody. I know I feel this way. I don't know how many of you here are in Indiana, but the Midwest, everybody wants to help each other.
Yeah.
You know, if you can get your ask really specific,
right.
We want to help each other. It's like the Midwest way. It really is.
Right.
Okay. We only have a couple minutes. I could keep you on all night, JoDee, but I won't. This time I won't hold you hostage on my Zoom call.
Not like I'm going to a big party or anything.
You know, I got to get going. I've got a lot of events that I need to show up for. I'm curious. You've written these books on Joy Powered. This is something that's very important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, when you think of all the things you could tell the world, you're probably going to write 50 more books. So today, what's the thing that you think people need to hear from their leaders and from you today?
Yeah. Figure out what it is that you do best and find a way to do more of it. And that might not be, you know, accounting or HR. It might be being creative. It might be being strategic. It might be communicating. You know, don't think of it as a thing. Think of it as a skill set that you can learn and grow. And then can I say one more thing?
Yeah, 2. Great. Even better.
One of my all-time favorite quotes is, what would happen if we focused on what is right with people versus fixating on what is wrong with them? And I think that's good advice, especially in these somewhat turbulent times, that it's easy to point fingers or judge other people and to look for the good in them, but also turning that inward and saying, what is right with me right now? What happened good to me today, and how can I repeat it tomorrow? Because it's easy to get down on ourselves about what's not right with us.
Oh,
so
I'm putting that, I'm going to post that later on LinkedIn. I will credit you for it, because that is, you know, through these times, we have to kind of self-feed too.
Yeah. Right.
And asking, that's such a good question. What is right with me? I think about the definition of humility is having an accurate view of yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes as leaders, people are like, well, I want to be humble. Well, this isn't a humble view, is an accurate view. So I know that your team does Strengths Finders work, right?
Right.
Find out what you are really good at that you love to do. Find out what's going right.
Right.
And move towards that. That is a gem. That's beautiful. I love that. And I just noticed that when I ask people, like, what are they proud of? They're like, I can't say that out loud, or I'm embarrassed to even talk about it.
That's right.
We have to show up for ourselves. We have to be able to, you know, build our own courage, encourage ourselves, especially in times like these.
Exactly. Yeah. Humilitas veritas says that, and humility is truth. We have to figure out what that is about ourselves.
Yes. Powerful. Okay. I have one more question for you, and we'll see if anybody else does. And then for real, I'll let you go have dinner. Okay. I really believe that, as you know, the way that we're raised, the way that we grow up shapes our expectations at work. And I'm curious, what's something that has happened, a childhood memory for you that has shaped you today, that allows you to be who you are today?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my mom and dad, I grew up in a very small town, southern Indiana. I was JoDee from Lagodi.
Yes.
But my mom and dad were very active and involved in the community, whether it was church, the Lions Club, selling nuts for Tri Kappa, the school board, whatever. And they really instilled that value in me of wanting to volunteer. And whether that was volunteering in my profession, volunteering at church, volunteering for the poor. I mean, you know, I think it's about giving back to others. And my mom and dad were so good at that. And I think one thing specifically my mom did for many years is organized a big talent show for our community that just brought literally almost the entire community of 1,500 people together to sing and dance and laugh. And it just always had such a big impact on me of thinking how powerful that was for our community and how my mom was a big part of it. And that is one of the reasons why I love working as a volunteer and specifically with HR Indiana, and it's bringing people together for fun and laughter and learning. And so
that's a good, we got to use that story in a talk, JoDee. That's a good story. I love that. So let's talk real quick because HR Indiana is coming up. It's in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I know I've been lucky enough to be a part of this since I think 2017. We were talking about that's how we met originally.
Right.
And
right.
I'm really excited for this year because if there was ever a time for everyone in HR to get together, or if you want to get into HR and you want to kind of see what it's like, this is a safe way to do it. If there was ever a year to do it,
right
now.
Right. Yeah. August 24th to the 26th, you can still sign up online. And if you sign up tonight or tomorrow morning, you can still watch the free Hug Sky at noon on Wednesday, which is going to be awesome as he talks about race relations and violence. And then Lindsay Picardo, Tuesday morning, 8:30, August 25th, our rock star.
Yep. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to laugh. We're going to talk about how every generation matters, which I'm really passionate about. And it's so important right now in the workplace because we're coming from different perspectives.
Yeah.
This is all I think this year is about, recognizing that we are all different and we can really find strength in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not ignore it and not feel like we, have to be homogenized. But I love that the free Hugs guy is coming. If you haven't seen him speak before, you just Google him and you'll get a little preview of what it would be like to see him. So check that out. Sam put the link for SHRM Indiana, hrindianashrm.org. Mm-hmm. Check it out. The conference is coming up. It's all available online. So if you're still in like sweatpants isolation mode, great. You can just enjoy it from your home, learn a ton, learn from some awesome trainers. So JoDee, I so appreciate having you on and getting some quality time with you, checking in. It means a lot to me personally. And I know for everybody on the call, getting to hear from you is huge. So thank you for taking the time to sit on the porch with us tonight.
I'm so excited to have sat on the porch with Lindsay Picardo.
Yes. There's a lot of ways that you can get a hold of JoDee. She mentioned jumping in LinkedIn. You can find her right there on LinkedIn. We put her link right in the chat. Go add her to your LinkedIn right now so you can continue to hear from her. She's got great books. I've got them all. Joy Powered Family. It's fantastic. Joy Powered Team and the original Joy Powered, Intentionally Creating an Inspired Workspace. Mm-hmm. Again, this is a great time to have these books in your back pocket as an encouragement for yourself and for your family and your team. Yeah. So check that out. JoDee, thank you so much. I'll see you real soon.
All right. Thank you.
Elbows. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, JoDee. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.